Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine you're scrolling through social media. Maybe you get a friend request, someone you don't quite recognize, but, you have mutual friends.
Yeah, happens all the time.
Or maybe you're looking for work-from-home jobs online, hoping for some flexibility, maybe some extra cash.
Right, standard stuff.
Seems like everyday online activity, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But what if clicking accept on that friend request or
Yeah.
sending your resume for that perfect-sounding remote job? What if that could actually pull you into, well, the dark world of financial crime?
Making you a money mule.
Exactly. Making you a crucial but maybe disposable piece in a money laundering scheme.
And that's a very real and unfortunately pretty common scenario. It's how a lot of people first bump into the topic of our deep dive today, money mules.
Right.
These individuals are, well, they're absolutely critical to sophisticated financial crimes. They are the people criminals use to move illicit funds through the legitimate financial system. It's a vital step in making dirty money look clean.
And our mission today, well, it's really guided by material from FinCrime intelligence. And we want to really get into the weeds on this.
Mm-hmm.
We want to understand exactly what money mules are, the surprisingly deceptive ways criminals trick people into becoming them.
Yeah, the recruitment tactics.
The incredibly serious risks involved, both for the banks and crucially for the individuals themselves, and, how the system is trying to catch this and stop it.
And what's really key from the source material is understanding where the money mule fits in the bigger picture of financial crime.
Okay.
They're recruited, sometimes without even knowing it, specifically to move illicit funds using their own bank accounts or other financial instruments. Their role often comes in during what's called the integration phase of money laundering.
Right. Integration. That's the final stage, isn't it? Where
Yeah.
the criminals try to get the cleaned money back into the legitimate economy so they can use it without raising flags. And the mule is the person who kind of helps bridge that gap between the criminal world and the normal banking system.
So that's a good way to put it.
So, according to the source, how does this process typically work? From the mule's point of view, what are the mechanics?
Usually it breaks down into a few steps for the mule. First, they receive funds into their account.
Okay.
And it's critical to remember these funds aren't legitimate. They're the proceeds of crime, things like fraud, cybercrime, various scams, even drug trafficking.
So dirty money lands in their account.
Right. Then the mule gets instructions on what to do next. This often involves withdrawing the cash or sometimes converting it maybe into cryptocurrencies or buying gift cards.
So they take the money out of the bank account it first landed in.
Exactly. And then they're told to move it again. They'll transfer the funds, often internationally, to other accounts that the criminals control.
Right.
And to make it harder to trace, harder to connect the dots back to the original crime, the criminals often have the mule break down large sums into smaller, less obvious transfers.
Ah, the classic smurfing technique you hear about in money laundering.
Precisely. Breaking down big amounts into smaller chunks, trying to stay below reporting thresholds, or just seem less suspicious.
Makes sense.
And here's the kicker. Regardless of whether the person moving the money knows it's illegal or if they're completely convinced they're doing legit work,
Yeah.
their actions are still facilitating this critical movement of criminal money through the financial system. Their awareness doesn't change the function they serve.
That distinction between awareness levels seemed incredibly important and honestly quite tragic sometimes. The source breaks down the types of money mules, doesn't it?
It does. And this is where you really see the human side and, the different levels of involvement. First, you have the unwitting mules.
The ones who are tricked.
Totally tricked. They might fall for a really sophisticated fake job scam thinking they're a payment processor or something. Or they could be victims of a romance fraud, believing they're helping out a partner they met online. They genuinely think they're doing legitimate freelance work or helping someone they care about.
That's just heartbreaking. They're victims themselves, really.
Yeah.
But they're also being used to commit more crime.
Absolutely. Then you've got the witting mules.
Okay, what's the difference?
These are people who might suspect something's off. They see red flags, maybe the job description is super vague or the requests seem weird or they're told, don't ask too many questions.
But they do it anyway.
They choose to ignore those warning signs, often because they're motivated by personal financial gain. Maybe they get to keep a small cut or they're paid a fee for each transaction.
So they're not fully in the loop on the whole criminal enterprise, but they're kind of looking the other way for a payoff.
You could say that, yeah. And then finally, you have the complicit mules.
Okay, these sound like the ones who know exactly what's going on.
They do. These individuals are fully aware of the illegal nature of what they're doing. They are intentionally assisting organized crime networks, and they're doing it for, significant profit.
Right.
And the source also makes a really key point about who often gets targeted for recruitment.
Yeah, who are they looking for?
Often it's vulnerable populations. Think students, people who are unemployed, or folks with limited financial literacy, people who might be more susceptible to the lure of easy money or just more easily manipulated by these scams.
That makes a kind of chilling sense. If you're under financial pressure or maybe new to the workforce,
Mm.
you might be less likely to question an offer that seems too good to be true, especially if it promises to solve your problem.
Exactly.
So what are some of the specific deceptive tactics these criminals use to actually find and recruit these people? How do they make contact?
The methods are pretty varied and often quite sophisticated, playing on everyday online activities. Fake job ads are a huge one.
Right, the work from home dream.
Totally.
Yeah.
Particularly targeting people looking for remote work. They'll advertise roles like financial assistant, payment processor, logistics agent, stuff that requires you to use your personal bank account to, quote, receive and transfer client payments.
Okay, wait. So if a job, any job,
Yeah.
asks you to use your personal Mules account to handle company funds,
Mm.
that's a massive red flag right there.
A critical one, absolutely. Social media outreach is another huge method.
Just direct messages.
Yeah, DMs on platforms you use every day, Instagram, Facebook, even LinkedIn. Criminals message people directly, promising easy money for very little effort. They might frame it as a business opportunity or a freelance gig.
Wow.
Romance scams are also heavily used. Building an emotional connection over time, gaining trust.
And then hitting them up for help.
Exactly. Leveraging that trust to ask them to move money for some fabricated reason, a sick relative, a business problem, travel costs.
Yeah.
And then you've got unsolicited offers or fake payment requests sent through messaging apps like WhatsApp, or just plain old email phishing scams, often designed to look like they're from a legit company or service.
So they're covering all the bases online.
Pretty much. And the source highlights how these recruiters often use high-pressure tactics, trying to rush people into decisions before they think too hard. They might even create fake documents like contracts or company websites to seem more credible.
It really shows how criminals are exploiting the trust we kind of have to place in online interactions and these platforms just to function day to day.
It does.
And the consequences.
Yeah.
The consequences of falling for this, even if you had no idea, they sound incredibly serious.
They are. And the risks aren't just theoretical. They are very real for everyone involved. For the financial institutions, the banks,
Yeah.
failing to detect this mule activity means they're unknowingly processing the proceeds of crime. This can lead to significant anti-money laundering AML violations, and that means huge regulatory penalties, reputational damage.
So AML rules are basically the system banks use to stop criminals washing dirty money, right? And if mules slip through that net, the bank can get in serious trouble.
That's exactly it. The mule activity is often the weak link, the blind spot the criminals exploit to get the money into the system.
Okay.
And these mule networks, they're frequently the cash-out mechanism for other types of fraud. The source specifically mentions funds coming from things like business email compromise.
BEC fraud, right, where they impersonate CEOs or vendors.
Yeah, tricking companies into sending money.
Yes.
Or funds from phishing attacks or account takeover fraud where they steal login details. The money stolen through those crimes needs to be moved fast and laundered quickly.
And mules provide that crucial exit route.
Often, yes. They help turn that digital theft into usable cash or other assets for the criminals. In more sophisticated cases, you see mule networks linked to moving funds for terrorist financing or cashing out proceeds from things like ransomware payments or cryptocurrency stolen in hacks.
Serious stuff.
Very. But, as you touched on earlier, perhaps the most devastating risks are actually for the individuals who become the mules.
Even the unwitting ones.
Yeah.
The ones who were completely tricked.
Yes. And this is a really critical point the source emphasizes. Even if you were an unwitting mule, you can still face severe legal consequences.
Like what?
Your bank accounts can be frozen, your assets could be seized, you could face criminal charges, hefty fines, possibly even prison time, depending on the jurisdiction and the scale of the activity.
Yeah, even if you thought you were doing a legitimate job.
Yes. And beyond the legal nightmare, the reputational damage can follow you for years. It can make it incredibly difficult to open new bank accounts, get credit, maybe even pass background checks for certain jobs. Simply being involved, even if you were manipulated, means you facilitated a crime and the law can hold you accountable.
That's a really, really sobering reality. It just underscores why awareness is so vital here. So, what are financial institutions and law enforcement actually doing to identify this and stop it?
Well, financial institutions are really on the front lines when it comes to detection. The source outlines several strategies they use. They have sophisticated behavioral monitoring systems.
Looking for unusual activity.
Exactly. Activity that's totally out of whack with the customer's normal profile. Imagine an account that usually just sees a regular paycheck suddenly getting multiple large, unexplained international wires coming in and then going straight back out.
Yeah, that would definitely stand out.
It should. They also use account velocity tracking, basically watching for really frequent, rapid movement of funds in and out of an account. That churning can be a sign.
Makes sense.
Geolocation and device analysis are also used. Flagging accounts being accessed from lots of different places, or maybe high-risk locations, especially places the actual account holder has likely never been.
Okay.
And increasingly, they're using advanced machine learning models. These AI systems are trained on patterns from known, confirmed mule accounts to spot similar suspicious behavior in real time, often much faster than a human analyst could.
So technology is playing a huge part in spotting these patterns that might otherwise be missed.
Absolutely. But there's also a vital human element, too. Many banks are doing more customer outreach and education.
Calling people up.
Sometimes, yeah.
Mm.
Contacting account holders about suspicious activity to verify it, but also using those interactions as a chance to educate them about mule scams, tell them what to look out for.
Ah, okay. Turning a security check into an awareness opportunity.
Exactly. And of course, a big piece is proactively reporting suspected mule activity to the authorities, specifically to financial intelligence units, or FIUs.
Those are the national centers that collect this kind of intel.
Right. They collect and analyze financial crime information. And reporting to law enforcement directly is obviously crucial, too.
Okay, so the banks are looking inside their systems and reporting suspicious stuff outwards. What about preventing people from becoming mules in the first place? Are there, like, public awareness campaigns happening?
Yes, and they are absolutely critical because, really, prevention starts with making sure potential victims are informed. Law enforcement agencies and financial industry groups around the world are running campaigns.
Any examples?
Yeah, the source mentions some notable ones like Europol's campaign, which uses the hashtag #DumpAMule. It directly warns people about how these scams work and what the consequences are.
Catchy hashtag.
It is. And agencies like the National Cybersecurity Center in the UK or the FBI over in the US, they regularly issue alerts specifically targeting the recruitment methods we talked about, the ones on social media and through fake job sites.
Trying to get ahead of it.
Exactly. And banks themselves often have their own initiatives. They use their websites, their apps, maybe even branch posters to share real-life examples of mule recruitment tactics and provide clear red flags people should look out for.
Showing people actual examples is probably the most powerful way to make it real for them.
I think so, too. The main goal of all these efforts is just to ramp up public awareness. The more people understand the sneaky tactics and the severe risks involved.
The less likely they are to get tricked.
Exactly. Less likely to be tricked into participating, and maybe less likely to willingly ignore those red flags if they do suspect something. Increased awareness is fundamentally essential, both to stop individuals from becoming victims and to disrupt these criminal networks that rely on them.
So pulling this all together then,
Yeah.
it seems money mules are this critical, often kind of invisible link in the whole money laundering chain. They act as the bridge that lets dirty money move across borders and sneak into the legitimate financial system.
That's really the key takeaway. And while, yes, some individuals are fully complicit, it's crucial to remember that a huge number are actually deceived into participating, often through really sophisticated manipulation.
Right.
And that reality, it just highlights why we need this multi-pronged approach, Public education, better detection tech in the banks, strong law enforcement action, and solid regulatory enforcement. They're all absolutely critical tools to disrupt this specific and very damaging type of financial crime.
It makes you think, doesn't it? Given how sophisticated these recruitment tactics are, using everything from fake job sites to, well, genuine seeming emotional connections, could you spot the signs? Could you tell if that online friend asking for help or that amazing job offer was actually a trap?
It's tough.
And how does the vulnerability of certain individuals, the ones specifically targeted online, how does that factor into the bigger global fight against financial crime? It feels like combating this isn't just about tracking transactions. It's also very much about protecting vulnerable people.
And this really raises a big question, I think, about trust in our digital world. If technology and, frankly, clever social engineering are making it easier for criminals to recruit everyday people, people like you and me, to move dirty money, what does that actually mean for the future of our online interactions?
Yeah, that's a heavy thought.
How do we navigate things like online job applications or freelance work platforms or even building relationships online where we might innocently be asked for a financial favor or asked to handle money for someone else? It fundamentally shifts the landscape of who needs to be vigilant and what we all need to look out for, really, every time we connect or transact online.